I'm going to say this quite bluntly before you see this. It has gotten to the point here in America that if you daresomely speak out against feelings that you believe are true, or if you speak out about something that is against the grain, it has reached the point that you will be punished, you will be reprimanded, you will possibly be fired, you will possibly be imprisoned, you will be hurt in some form or fashion, similar towards myself speaking out against what went on in Mount Carmel, Waco, Texas, speaking out also about what went on in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, towards me, myself, and I becoming punished for viewing that in which what I believe to be the truth. Now, after the evidence has been presented to the rest of the public, if they choose to want to believe that in which what I believe, which I believe is the truth, is that going to forfeit their right to believe the same way that I believe because they understand and realize that I have been punished, reprimanded, hurt, disrespected, victimized, dehumanized, and demonized simply because of speaking out? Are we at that level here in America to the point that, yeah, it's supposed to be freedom of speech, but at what cost? You know, we see the cost of Donald J. Trump of speaking out, and basically Facebook and all the social network platforms basically banned him from being able to speak on any of those platforms. I understand to a certain level, in a certain degree, that being in the theater and crying fire, 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 and there is no fire, starting a major panic, or pulling down a fire extinguisher in a school, that if you do this, it has tendencies of being terrorist related. I understand that pertaining to creating havoc or hurting people out of panic and fear. I don't miss that at all, because that has personally erupted in my life whenever I said that there was going to be an explosion of controversy that was going to originate in my life. And sure enough, it has. I've got loved ones, I've got friends, I've got church associates to this day still won't have nothing to do with me, even though they have looked at a great deal of my material and they feel like that my material lines up with their way of thinking as far as us being in agreement with the Bible, with the Lord, towards various things that's going on. But yet now they refuse to speak up or speak out. So many people thinks that they're going to be punished by their own government for saying stuff that is against the grain or not popular. Similar towards what has occurred in my life. In the message coming from the Windmill Ministries missions pertaining to how that we have interpreted the Bible and expressed it openly before the people. If it reaches the point that we're allowed to have guns, but we're not allowed to talk about them, then I truly believe that we have went over the edge in the magnitude that our ancestors did not want us to go over into, especially the type of firearms that they have today with all these semi-automatic rifles. I know that certain pilots that have seen unexplainable things that people to this day called unidentified flying objects. Certain pilots refuse to acknowledge that they have seen what they have seen, not so much because they didn't want to fill out the paperwork, but they knew the repercussions that was going to happen after they admitted that they seen what they seen, because they was going to be scrutinized. They was going to be humiliated in front of their peers and in front of whoever. Just like there's people today that want to remain being silent witnesses pertaining to God and the Lord Jesus Christ, but they're afraid that if they come out in the open, then they themselves are going to become a target. They themselves is going to be hunted. They themselves is going to be scrutinized and dehumanized, similar towards what has occurred with the founder of the Windmill Ministries, which is the individual speaking to you right now. So I want you to take this, not with a grain of salt, but I want you to take this and listen to it, because it is a violation against our Constitution. Now, granted, the individual that they're fixing to put on the screen right here has a great deal of responsibility pertaining to the agency that he's associated with. But for them to do what they have done to him, I find it to be very, very unfair. Please watch.
Welcome back. Marxism in the military. A Space Force lieutenant colonel spoke out about that topic and was removed from his command. Our Fox News correspondent Lucas Tomlinson is live at the Pentagon with the latest for us. Hi, Lucas.
Hi, Jackie. That's right. That lieutenant colonel in the Space Force was relieved of command after saying training materials he received for his extremism material was biased against white people.
There were videos being sent out to every base service member that we were asked to watch in preparation for our extremism down days and discussions on race, in which we were taught that the country was evil, that it was founded in 1619 and not 1776, and that whites are inherently evil. And so I speak up against those things in my book.
He spoke up against those things. Let's listen to it one more time. That way you can identify what he is actually saying and the format that he's saying it in. Let's back it up. Back it up. Right there.
Hi, Jackie. That's right. That lieutenant colonel in the Space Force was relieved of command after saying training materials he received for his extremism material was biased against white people.
There were videos being sent out to every base service member that we were asked to watch in preparation for our extremism down days and discussions on race, in which we were taught that the country was evil, that it was founded in 1619 and not 1776, and that whites are inherently evil. And so I speak up against those things in my book.
He said he spoke up against those things in his book. In other words, he brought it to the front lines pertaining to what he was talking about, but in reality, he was speaking against these things. So let's listen to the rest of this.
Never received permission to publish a book. He didn't go through the process that even former defense secretaries like Bob Gates just went through. Officials also tell Fox none of the training materials given to Lohmeyer mention the 1619 Project or anything about whites being evil. The videos are all publicly available online. The head of Space Operations Command relieved Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeyer of command of the 11th Space Warning Command in Colorado last Friday over what he called a loss of trust and confidence in his ability to lead. Space Force spokesman telling Fox, quote, "This decision was based on public comments made by Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeyer in a recent podcast. Space Operations Command has initiated a command-directed investigation on whether these comments constituted a prohibited partisan political activity. Due to the ongoing investigation, it would be inappropriate to comment further." Now, 3 of those publicly available videos have been reviewed by Fox News, and so far no mention of any 1619 Project or anything about whites being evil. We have reached out to Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeyer for proof about these videos. We'll let you know. Jackie?
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you so much for that. Great to see you.
Once more, it's got to the point that if you speak out or speak up, you're going to suffer the consequences. The reason why that they're reprimanding this particular individual right now is because he didn't take it through the proper channels of producing a book and getting it out to the general public. Now we're talking about techniques. Once more, let's look at the Windmill Ministries life for the past 30 years. They have branded me with several different brands. They first branded me with the brand, oh, he's a celebrity seeker. Then they branded me, oh, he's crazy. He's mentally ill. There's something wrong with this individual. Then they branded me towards me being a hoax. Basically a conniver. Somebody that's trying to connive the people in believing in something that is not so. That's what they're trying to brand me with. The fact of the matter is, I believe it is so. If I didn't believe it was so, I wouldn't be projecting that image coming from the Windmill Ministries of the first seal in the book of Revelations being opened. But because they don't want to believe it, because they don't want to support it, because they truly do not want peace and utopia, I still get all this criticism from all these different people on all these different levels pertaining to the brands that they have tried to brand me with, simply because I did not go through the proper channels. And whenever I say go through the proper channels, their opinion of proper channels in the church sector, is that I'm looked upon by various individuals as being a bootlegger type preacher or a bootlegger type prophet, a self-proclaimed prophet, or a bootlegger type messenger, simply because I didn't go to Harbor, I didn't finish my graduate school, I didn't get my GED, I didn't go through all these different hula hoops and cartwheels that a lot of people go through towards becoming educated to begin with. In other words, I don't give my appreciation or the gifts that God has given me to Yale, to Harbor, or to some other college or institution. I truly give the information and the knowledge that God has given me to God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. People are objectionable to that. You know why they're objectionable to that? Because they have been brainwashed in believing that in order for you to be a public figure, a true public figure, that is basically a producer or somebody that's taken the initiative of standing up about something, they think because I haven't done it in their proper sequence, they think that I'm bogus. They still to this day refuse to knock on my door or call me or write me a letter or send me an email telling me how much that they care about me and how much they're willing to support this ministry to go forth in seeing a true utopia or a peace fall upon the society. In the meantime, we've got facts in looking at. I just want to make mention of this real quick. You know, it was the year after last, whenever the people over in China started rebelling against the leaders over in China and started protesting about what that their government was doing to them. I truly believe that somebody, either intentionally or non-intentionally, created the virus called coronavirus that was to put out there to try to eliminate this type of movement. The bad thing about it was it moved to other areas too as well. It actually moved all over the planet, the way that I understand it. But if you look at what went on last year pertaining up in Portland, Oregon, people protesting, people burning buildings, people standing up against police officer brutality. If you look at what happened with George Floyd, if you look at other type incidences that's happened all over this country, including up in Kentucky, where people have stood up in open protest, that some of those protests has actually become violent, which, as far as I'm concerned, that's gang or mob related. Then we've got the insurrection that happened January the 6th. I'm going somewhere with this conversation. We're in the month of May here, 2021. We had the insurrection that happened January the 6th here in America. Once more, you got major protesting going on in Russia. You got major protesting going on in other parts of the country. You got tons and tons and thousands of people coming out of South America and Mexico, realizing that they can't fight against their corrupt government. The best that they can do is bring their child, he or she, to the border and hopefully pray to God that whoever grabs a hold of them over here in America will be kind and gentle and polite and proper to them. Now, just within a week, Israel has sure enough showed its ugly side, in which I don't blame Israel for defending itself pertaining to the Arabs that's killed a bunch of the Israelis, as well as the Israelis that's killed a bunch of Arabs. But those people will show you how it's done. There ain't no burning tires. There ain't no getting in front of a cop. There ain't no rubber bullets. There ain't no water deal going on. It ain't no president standing in front of the church with an upside down Bible telling everybody how that we're supposed to be going by the word of God. No, no, no. What you're seeing over in the Middle East is something that those people are professionally trained at, towards being nothing but hardcore, rootless murderers or killers. They don't play around. If it ever escalates to the point of what it is now, it could actually be a fire, a tinderbox that's just waiting to strike at any given moment, that once it's struck, it may very well not be put out very easily. That's what we're looking at right now. Simply because of this Antichrist spirit that has befallen upon to the planet. As I have spoken before, it speaks about this in Revelations, that in the last days Satan will rise up in great wrath because he knows his time is short. Just like people trying to condemn the American people that's been here all their lives for speaking out about something, for saying something that they truly are passionate about or believe in, just like this individual that they just got through discussing, this individual that's involved with the military, Space Force. He's a commander. They have eliminated him, reprimanded him from his position because of speaking out of something that he truly is passionate about. You can't tell me anybody can see this. We are under siege right now on every level imaginable, to the point of being trillions of dollars in debt. God only knows how many people are imprisoned. The drug culture is running wild. The suicide rate is running wild. The brutality from various agencies is running wild. In other words, what I'm speaking about right now is something that most politicians don't want to talk about, pertaining to their guilt and their fault, especially those that's been elected 4, 5, 6, 10 times, that's been in power for more than 20 years. They don't want to discuss this because they know that the brunt of the fault falls upon the feet of these very people that I'm talking about. They have failed in their constitutional duties to protect us and take care of us, to the level that now people such as myself, people such as this individual that you just got through witnessing, that's a commander in the Space Force, are being isolated, segregated out, treated as if they're crazy, or treated as if they're harmful to society, or treated as if they're just something in a Wild Wild West show, while the Wild Wild West show is taking over the planet. So you got people like me, and there is good police officers that are peacemakers, that are trying to do the right thing. You got people like this particular commander that's speaking out because he's trying to do the right thing, or this is the thing that he believes that he should be speaking out against. Keep in mind, he published a book, but because he didn't go through the proper sequences, now they're going to punish him. Same thing pertaining to my situation. Because I never could get a true church to coexist with the Windmill Ministries here that's been in existence now for over 30 years, since 1989. They continue to brand me and put me on the back burner and try to ignore me. And the more that they continue to ignore me or ignore people like us, the worser that things become. And if it's not becoming worser directly here in the United States, indirectly, worldwide, planet-wide, it's getting worser. It's elevating to a worser and worser state. This year alone may very well top, I'm not making this prediction, but it may very well top the exceeding hurricanes that hit last year that broke an all-time record. No, this is not what I'm praying for. This is what I'm trying to put out warnings, or trying to put out some sort of advisories towards, that if we do not straighten up our lives the way that we're living, we can expect these great sorrows that it talks about in the Bible to only intensify. I think it was yesterday, a cyclone hit somewhere over in India, adding insult to injury towards what they're already going through pertaining to the coronavirus. Things is falling apart. Satan is rising up in great wrath because he realizes that this trickery that he's tried to trick the nations with is now becoming transparent. And because it's becoming transparent, you're seeing more wickedness come out of this evil, demonic empire, because it says in the Bible that Satan is the prince of this world. So this world is basically Satan's empire. Now you're seeing it start to fall and crumble and tumble, different columns that are being dislodged, different things that are coming apart, just like us being $30+ trillion in debt. $30 trillion in debt. I'm surprised that our GOP and our interest rate hadn't been looked at in a different format towards us being punished in regards towards our interest rate. How that they're maintaining this type of corruption on a global scale has to be coming from the top tier. Has to be coming from, yes, the Illuminatis, the Fortune 500, the Masons, and those that follow pursuit below that pyramid. It has to be coming from the top tier for it to still be hanging on as good as what it's hanging on. Not just here in America, but throughout all the countries on the planet. But eventually, my point is this, eventually they will fail in trying to peace produce different elements of peace, as we're seeing evolve right now, which is going in the opposite direction of peace and utopia. Like I said earlier, when it reaches the point that freedom of speech is considered unlawful, but to have an AK-47 or a semi-automatic rifle of some sort, to be able to handle that and have that, whenever it reaches the point that it becomes so unbalanced in society to where there's basically no rule of law, that's whenever Big Brother, and whenever I talk about Big Brother, I'm not talking about the United States government. I'm talking about Big Brother as in the kingdom of God. That's when the Father will step in and he will put an end to this type of corruption that has unbalanced the forces of our planet called Earth. And if that is the direction that obviously these people from Northwest Tennessee want to continue to go in, and various other people in Kentucky and Oklahoma and Washington, D.C., if this is the heading that they want to continue to go in, towards watching this slow motion train wreck right in front of our eyes happening. In other words, we know that it's going to occur. We know that the rails have been jerked out of the earth, and it's just a matter of time before the train reaches that point that it will be just totally destruction, totally annihilation. If we choose to want to go down this particular heading or this path towards watching this and not stopping it because of the ungodliness going on, then so be it. The fault will fall upon the feet of those who oppose this ministry. The fault will fall upon the feet of those that did not want to support this ministry. The fault will fall upon those who allowed in the church sector for this sin to become rapid to the point that now homosexuality is considered in a lot of church settings to be acceptable or normal. Well, if homosexuality is considered normal or right, if taking away our freedoms towards freedom of speech is considered normal or right, when is it going to reach the level of murder to the point that if you murder somebody out in the broad day, that it's considered fair and right? God will not allow for this unjust, corrupt system to continue to keep becoming more and more corrupt, pertaining to our courts and pertaining to our global world view of what is going on right now on this planet. He will bring such misery and such sorrow, such as man has never, ever experienced before in some form or fashion, regardless whether it comes in the form of a disease, a flood, a fire, a hurricane, a tornado, a drought, drugs, divorces, pornography, overdosing, outlandish acts of murder, brutality on the streets. God will allow for the wicked to turn against the wicked. And then whenever the innocent or the godly become so harmed and hurt to the effect that now they're being diminished, that's when the Father will step in. He will bust the eastern skies open with Jesus Christ sitting on the right hand of the kingdom. He will gather together from the four corners of the earth all of those who's ever lived before us and all those who are living now presently pertaining to the elect, the godly. He will remove us, and he will literally burn everything that is burnable up onto this planet, other than the trees. Won't burn the trees unless some of them gets burnt because of structure damage. But by and large, he's going to set a sail towards destroying this planet with fire and brimstone that will fall out of the heavens. People don't realize where we are in this crossroads event of how serious that these matters not just are becoming, but have already become. People don't want to see the seriousness in this, to the point that probably about 20-25% of the people in the population over here in America does not even keep in touch with the news. Not local news, not international news. You know why they don't want it? Because they know that these occurrences are happening, but there ain't nothing that they can do to stop them. And because they're basically, their hands is tied to the point that they're not going to be able to eliminate the damage that's being done to ourselves, they choose to use the best strategy, which is out of sight, out of mind. In other words, they turn that channel completely off and go to something that they can laugh at and giggle at until it actually comes home to them. Now, whenever it comes home to them, then it's, oh me, oh my, please help me. You know, there's no way of this dilemma escaping our personal lives. This train wreck that we're seeing in slow motion happen right in front of our very eyes, if we are not smart enough to head it off, it will be devastating to the planet Earth in ways such as we have never, ever thought of. Just the disruption this year and this past year pertaining to COVID is going to cause the supply chain. And whenever I'm talking about the supply chain, I'm not just talking about the food supply chain. I'm talking about the supply chain that ordinary people have learned to depend upon every day, regardless whether it's shavers, regardless whether it's baby food, regardless whether it's lotions, regardless whether it's this or that. We will see compromises or hiccups in the system to the point that, yeah, even those things that is and was at one time considered plentiful will diminish because there is hiccups in the supply chain. There's hiccups in the supply chain. And whenever you get enough hiccups in the supply chain, it will disrupt colonies, cultures, countries, as well as this planet. Once more, I'm really surprised that they've held it together as well as they've held it together just within the past 3 years since all this has been evolving, going from one extreme to another, seeing buildings burnt down to the ground, seeing law enforcement agencies burnt down to the ground, seeing things that ordinarily we don't see here in America that have been escalating and evolving. We're going to continue to see these things if we don't wrap our minds around this problem and try to correct it before it reaches a devastating, irreversible, catastrophic event that even I, as good of an imagination that I got, cannot even begin to fathom or imagine how devastating that this could possibly be in various places. I give our first responders 2 thumbs up. And our doctors and various politicians towards trying to head this off pertaining to the coronavirus, towards bringing the shots, the penicillin shots or the vaccination shots, into existence, so that it will help to cushion the blow of how bad that it could have actually been if we didn't jump on this towards having some sort of vaccination to counteract against this disease. It could have been 1,000 times worse. But to jump up and to say that it's over, strip off all your clothes, and let's start acting like we was pre-COVID towards bar hopping, doing drugs, killing unborn children, jumping from one bedroom to another, to go back into that lifestyle is only asking for worser natural catastrophes to happen to not just Mother Earth, but to we the people. And until society wakes up to this, towards who's actually in control of not just one ball, but in control of all the balls in the universe, in control of the universe, until society figures out who's in control and why these things continue to keep happening to us again and again and again and again, lessons will be repeated until it has been modified and learnt to the fullest extent. Because if we think that we are above and beyond the retribution that fell from the skies pertaining to other cultures and other generations that has suffered tremendously because of their ungodliness, if we think that we are above and beyond those cultures or those generations before us that has suffered severely, we are fooling ourselves. We're not above them in any form or fashion, because God judges humanity all the same. And whenever you have such of an unbalancing act that you have more wickedness than you have good, because the good is only so-called good, it's not really good. Whenever you have this going on, then is whenever, like I said a while ago, you got to worry about Big Brother stepping in and destroying us all, or allowing for us to destroy ourselves through nuclear activity or whatever. We are far from being out of the woods whenever it comes to the human society being in trouble right now. We are far from being out of the woods. We may have licked one thing in one type of way, but if we do not stay true to our faith in Christ, in our faith and a relationship with God, I guarantee you things will only escalate in the wrong way. And instead of bringing peace and utopia, you can bet on it towards a bloody road ahead, and you can bet on it towards things even becoming tragically worse than what we've already seen and experienced, regardless of what side of the equator that we may be on, regardless of what continent that we may be living on, because no one is going to escape the judgment of God. And that's exactly where we are right now, not only as a nation, but as a whole, as a planet. We are under condemnation. And until we're willing to straighten those things out of our lives and convince others to straighten those things out in our lives, we are going to continue to see horrible, horrible events happen. America is so displaced, we can't convince people when to put on a mask and when not to put on a mask. We cannot get it together